Welcome to Social Selling with Linking into Sales. This is Martin Brossman.
And I'm Elyse Archer.
And Greg Heyer is busy taking care of clients today. So it's going to be the two of us. Real excited to have our guest today, Jill Konrath, and we are going to get to you in a moment, and so excited about the topic of time management of resources and how to be more effective in a crazy busy world. And Elyse will go into a little more shortly, but we first want to mention our sponsor, which is our own social selling.training, our online training for your training in social selling. Greg and I, with input from Elyse, have spent over probably about a year and a half building this program out. It's rolling out in stages for people. You can get specials on it now. Really want you to make sure to check that out, socialselling.training. And then one other thing, we are so excited to announce, how many of you have heard of Amazon Alexa, the voice-controlled device we're trying to get? Now, Elyse, do you have one yet?
I do not have one yet,
Okay,
but I did hear you telling Alexa to shut up.
Right, exactly. No, I said stop. I didn't say shut up.
I'm sorry. You said please be quiet, Alexa.
Yes, my attitude is when they take over the world, I want to be treated well as a pet. So that's why I was careful. Anyway, if you know what Amazon Alexa is, we have a social selling skill from Linking into Sales produced by Greg Heyer, and you can find it if you go into the Amazon Alexa skills area and look up social selling tip of the day. It's in the news. It's excellent, well produced, and it comes from Linking into Sales. You can also see the shows on linkingintosales.com/ALEXA, Alexa, on our site. That's www.linkingintosales.com/Alexa, and check it out. And so look forward to hearing your comments. The last thing I want to say is we're going to remind people we are upgrading for the new LinkedIn layout tutorial. We want your questions either on Twitter or any platform of what you want to know about the new platform, because we're upgrading our training to include that. So very excited about our show today, and I'm going to pass it over to Elyse to introduce our wonderful guest.
Yes. So I do have a more formal bio to share for Jill, but I'm just going to start by saying for anybody who's been in sales for any amount of time, you should know the name Jill Konrath if you don't already. So actually, Jill, I haven't even shared this with you, but back in the day when I started my first big girl sales job in advertising sales, we would actually use your videos for training on Monday mornings. And so learning from Jill was really my first experience that, oh, wow, sales doesn't have to be me just using whatever little bit of natural talent I have and shooting from the hip. It's something that can be learned, that can be trained. And so you were really what made me fall in love with this whole field of sales training and coaching, and what ultimately inspired me to leave to go become a sales coach myself. So I do not at all compare myself to you. However, you were really the impetus for something really exciting in my life. And I know you have been for thousands and thousands of others. So guys, that's part of why I'm so excited to have Jill on the show today. She is just a phenom in the world of sales training. So I'll share with you guys just a little bit about her for anyone who is not familiar with Jill. So with over 250,000 LinkedIn followers, which I think is just like 250,000 more than I have, something like that. Jill Konrath was recently named one of the top 7 sales influencers of the 21st century. She's an international speaker and best-selling author of 4 books, including Snap Selling, Agile Selling, and Selling to Big Companies. Her newest one, More Sales, Less Time, right here for anybody who's watching, was just released to rave reviews, and that's actually what we're having her on the show to talk about today. So welcome, Jill. So happy to have you on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me, and that's quite the introduction, I have to say. I didn't know that I was in your advertising job doing training there. Years ago.
You were. Yeah. We probably owe you a lot of checks, I would imagine.
They're probably in the mail, right?
Right. They're totally in the mail. Well, I shared with Jill when we first connected, I read a lot of time management books. One of the things we coach salespeople on is time management. And I had just finished reading her book, More Sales, Less Time this weekend. And I mean, I say this genuinely, it is one of the best time management books I've ever read. And I told you I have to be careful because we've got some time management books that we've written as well. So I have to say it's one of the best. But for anyone out there who is feeling stressed or overwhelmed, which is going to be anybody who's a social seller, right, where you feel like you just don't have enough hours in your day, I feel like this is a must read. And so, Jill, we've got a bunch of questions for you to really help break this down for the crazy busy social sellers out there. So one of the points that you make early on in the book is that traditional time management strategies really don't work for salespeople, or they weren't geared towards a salesperson. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that. I'd never really heard it put that way before. I can see how that's true because I've never felt like it worked for me. But tell us a little bit about why they don't.
Well, I think the reality is in the past they worked pretty well, but what's happened in the last decade is we've gone into a digital world. And as a salesperson today, we spend our lives connected online. We're either in our email, in and out of our email all day long. We're looking people up online. We're checking out LinkedIn. We're going to their website. I mean, we are just inundated in this digital world. And the way our body actually responds when we're in this kind of world is phenomenally different. I mean, it just simply, our brain is not geared for all these distractions that we're facing. And so we get sucked in, and we disappear online. And I mean, I can go online, and I'm sure other people have followed this same trend. You go online, check out your email first thing in the morning, and you're checking email, and then there's this email from LinkedIn showing you the top articles of the day. And so you click on that article from LinkedIn, and you're reading it, and they reference another article. And you click on that article and go down that rabbit hole. And then you think, geez, I wonder what the weather is going to be like later this afternoon when I get off. And suddenly your brain pops to the weather. You go to your phone and you pull out your weather app, and you open your weather app up, and you're looking at the weather because you're just wondering what it's going to be like when you get off. And then the next thing you know, you're watching a video about a sinkhole in Florida, and you're not even from Florida. You know, that's what's happening to us. We're just disappearing. And 20 minutes later, you go, oh God, I got to get some work done. And nothing in our world has prepared us for this. And our brain is a interruption magnet. I mean, it just loves all these distractions. It's wired for these distractions. And that's what's causing the problem we're in.
I think I saw that video on the sinkholes. I know that. I know that one.
I mean, that's true. I'm telling a true story here on the sinkholes. I was watching it, and it wasn't even, I'm not from Florida, and I'm not going to Florida. There it was.
One of the important pieces you also bring up is we're in a world where we have more distractions than any time in history. And
Yes.
our biological systems aren't designed for it. They're designed for addressing distractions for survival. And that was one of your points that you brought up that's so important. So in some ways, it's constantly putting us in a survival mode when we allow the distractions. And even in the self-driving cars where they wanted people to be able to get engaged with the car, they find out that the human being can't switch gears that fast in the extreme emergency. And it takes so many seconds to get a hold of the steering wheel. And so I think one of the most valuable pieces here is the fact of every distraction has a reset time. That means it takes us a while to get into that focused state again. And I was giving, I want to honor our Greg Heyer because he got one of the smart watches that gives messages, and I almost got one in return. I went, I'm literally ADD. I don't need more. You know, it's in an article that was talking about lowering your IQ by 15 points by allowing these distractions to occur. And that's why I think your book is so timely, because it's written, how do you deal in a real world with constant distractions, with sales quotas where you have to be on the web at the same time? And the most valuable piece is you undervalue discipline over structures. And that's, to me, been fundamental in my coaching. So if you wouldn't mind adding a little bit to that, but to me, my view is if you don't want to eat cookies, remove them from the house. That's the best discipline.
I would agree. And that's one of the things that I personally had to learn as I was writing the book. I mean, I didn't write the book for other people. I wrote the book for me. I'm being really serious. I was being sucked. I was being sucked into this world all the time. I was not having enough time to do what I needed to get done. I was working from morning till night, and I was stressed out, not having fun anymore. And it just wasn't right. And so I'm normally a fairly organized person. So it was really a shock to me that I had become so ADD. And you mentioned that you're ADD, and I had become terribly ADD. I was not getting my work done, nor was the quality of my work at the level that I personally wanted it to be at. So I undertook the book. I mean, initially, first, it was my own personal challenge to regain control of my life. And I had not been as disciplined as you are stating, because I didn't like discipline like that. I mean, I honestly didn't like the discipline, but I find that the discipline is really helpful, that it is freeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny. That was one of the biggest things that to me was what made your book hit home. Was it was like, you are in my head right now, because I also feel like I've never been diagnosed with ADD. I know a lot of salespeople say like we are ADD, and a lot of people are diagnosed with that, but you can kind of create that environment around you when you allow yourself to succumb to the temptations. And so one of the parts to me that was so interesting, kind of piggybacking on what Martin said, was just all of the detail that you talk about how our brain works and how it's not set up for success. And you shared something there that was one of my biggest takeaways, was that it's better for us to have more positive actions to complete than temptations to resist. So could you give us some examples for maybe a social seller or somebody like who's using LinkedIn or Facebook a lot, who may feel really distracted throughout the day, of how they might, A, what that really means, and then B, how could they try to minimize some of the distractions by using positive actions instead of just taking stuff away?
Yeah, I think anybody who's ever been on a diet knows the challenges of trying not to eat. And the same thing goes on when you are online and we're trying to limit your online usage. I mean, what I found personally was that the more I tried to stop myself from checking email or going onto LinkedIn or getting sucked down that rabbit hole, the more I thought about doing it. It was like constantly on my mind, like, no, don't go check email, don't go check email. And I mean, that's what's going on. Don't check email. And I can't get it off my mind. But what I found, and the research backs this up, if you're constantly fighting things, first of all, your willpower for everything goes down, because you're using up your willpower trying to fight. And I need my willpower for other things. And so there were a couple of things that I really found that were really helpful. What I saw was that if I could put in a positive action instead, like you were saying, like if I could say, I'm going to check my email at 11 o'clock, or I'm going to go do my LinkedIn work from 11 to 11:30, and I'm going to group it all together. If I set a time for it and blocked out a specific unit of time, I felt okay. It was like, oh, I know I'm going to do this. It wasn't constantly harassing me and egging me on, and I wasn't having to resist all the time. So I found that rather than saying what I won't do, I would say, here's what I will do. And I will do this at this particular time, and I'll do this for this length of time. And knowing that freed me to do the other work, because I knew I was going to go on and do what I needed to do. I knew how long it was. By the way, when I did go on, because I had blocked out a specific time, because that was a positive action I was going to take, I actually worked much faster. Because I had a half hour. It's like when you're going on vacation, how productive you can become. Like the last half day, you can get 2 weeks worth of work done in the last 3 hours before vacation. The same thing happens when you set a time limit on what you're doing on these positive actions. I'm going on LinkedIn. I'm going to check out all these people, these companies, and I've got a half an hour. Boom, 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 boom. You just get going and on a roll, and your half an hour is used up, and you feel completed, like you have done the work that you need to do. So much better than fighting it all day long.
Well, that's another thing that you talk about that kind of relates to that, is this whole concept of idleness aversion, which I'd never heard it called that before. And as I read about it, I realized this is my life. So it's this, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, but this whole idea that when you're sitting down to do hard work, your brain doesn't want to do it, right? It doesn't want to have to do the hard creative thinking that goes into it. So all of a sudden it seems like a really good idea to check Facebook. And, sure enough, it happened to me last night as I was sitting down to finish these questions for this interview. My brain went, oh my gosh, it's been a long day. This is going to be really hard. I should just check Facebook really quick and make sure everything's good. And I literally had to sit there and breathe through it. I was like, this is ridiculous that I'm having to do this right now.
I'm having to check Facebook.
So I know. But I mean, it's just funny when you put a name to it, you realize how often it shows up in your life.
Oh,
so yeah, it sounds like it was something that you were. Yeah. That's what I was curious to hear about. It sounds like it's something that, you may have experienced a lot in your life. And tell us a little bit about like how you get past that or how you work through that idleness aversion.
I really found that I had to protect myself from it in a lot of ways, that it's not so easy as just working through it. I mean, just counting to 5 will help, 10 will help even longer. I mean, if you don't get sucked in, you don't have that problem. And so I think that first of all is you have to put that barrier up around you if you have this work to do, because you're fighting a natural inclination to do something that is easy and gives you a little reward of dopamine. Oh, you checked out, you checked out Facebook, you checked out this, and yes, somebody did write to you. So isn't that cool? You do have to get back to them, or you checked out email. And so all these things that we do, we can't resist them naturally. So one of the things I found is I did have to use technology to create that barrier for me, because otherwise I would get sucked in. I found that, research shows that the average email is people read it within 6 seconds or they check it out. So anytime you get a little ping or notice that there is a notification that something has arrived, we have this, again, natural tendency. We get dopamine, a nice rush of dopamine, which is a feel-good hormone when we do that. And so some of the protection that I had to use in order for me to get started was I had to, number one, turn off all notifications on all my devices, because it literally put me back in control of what I was doing. The other thing I found that was essential was to shut down my email program or my Chrome program, my browser, so that I couldn't be tempted. If it's not shut down, I'm not as likely, if it's shut down, I'm not as likely to check it. Another thing, again, the firewall that I had to create around me, because I was not good at resisting temptation, is I actually got a program called Freedom, which I found to be extraordinarily helpful. It's something that can be used on all your devices, and you can actually set a time limit where you will not be on either certain websites like Facebook, if that's your personal temptation, or ESPN. I've heard a lot of people talk about the need to check scores during different seasons. You can set it to not go on those kind of sites, or you can just set it to keep you offline totally for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or however long that you want to do it. So those are some of the things I found that I had to do to protect myself, because I would, like you, go off and do something that was non-essential but made me feel good.
Martin, do you ever struggle with that? Like, being a fellow human being, do you ever struggle with the idleness aversion?
Fellow human being. That's a good one.
Yeah, well, I love the comment of idleness aversion, and also what you call distraction firewalls. That was another great term you had, because that's something you build. Again, structure over discipline. And yes, tremendously. I remember one mentor one time, when it was far worse than it is today, would say, to you, a bird in the bush is worth more than two in the hand. And that described the ADD condition to me, and I also am a big advocate, and I saw it hinted in yours, but human beings want to understand why, and I believe the why is the booby prize to understanding the mechanics of how the non-constructive behavior works so you can change it. And I think you did hint at it, but in my view, we think that why, understanding the why will move us beyond it. And I believe that's step 1 of 1,000. The real is, how am I allowing myself to be distracted as though it's a skill, so then I can build the structures to change it? And I think you've pointed to that. When I do coaching with people, I'll say, pretend my job is to waste time like you do. Explain how I would do it. Because they aren't even conscious. They are so busy, well, why am I like this? You can spend the rest of your life in therapy for that. I'm not a therapist. And look at the why. I think the why is the booby prize, is what I challenge, that the human wants. That how is the utility. And I really believe you've discovered this through your necessity of getting results with it. Also, the brain doesn't handle negatives well. So if I say, don't think about pink elephants, I'm bringing it into existence. And that's used in advertising all the time and in politics to bring an issue into existence as a negative, so we'll focus on it. So I think that's a great reminder. Are your goals clear, measurable, what I call sensory detectable or verifiable goals with stuff? One of the apps you mentioned that I immediately downloaded and triggered because I said, I need a tune-up now. I'm cleaning up my parents' estate, which is extremely exhausting and amazingly depressing. One of the pieces you mentioned was rescuetime.com, and I'll put that in the show notes. But that was, I think, what you said was one of your first ones, first noticing, how are you doing it again, right?
Rescue time was a real shocker for me. I had no idea just how much time I was actually frittering away. I mean, I had managed to convince myself that all my activities were essential, and oh yeah, I somewhat diverted sometimes, but cumulatively, they were horrendous. I mean, when you took a look at it, and rescue time, for those people who don't know, is it works in the background. You can get a free version, and then there's a paid version, which goes on multiple devices and allows you to input time that you're away from your device, but it literally tracks what you're doing online, which sites you're on, how long you're on, and you can set goals to change your own behavior. To me, it was a real wake-up call to just literally see. I mean, I don't even in the book talk about how bad it was, because it was so bad. It was embarrassing to me that I, as somebody who is, reasonably respected and does well in my job and actually seems to get a lot done, in the greater scheme of things. But I mean, it's like, what could I be doing if I had all this time returned to me to be used, for either productive time to get more work done, to make more money, to make more sales, or even just to have time, for fun and to do more things. So I wasn't working every evening or feeling the pull of work. So rescue time to me is a huge baseline. It's the baseline that you're working from. And I actually, just let it run. So I would be honest with myself at first. And then I actually started cheating on it because it was so bad, because I didn't like what I was seeing. And then that's when I had to get freedom and some of these other apps to control my behavior.
I'm so curious about how you cheat on rescue time.
Well, initially I didn't have it on my cell phone, okay? So when I wanted to go onto my side pleasures, I would just pick up my cell phone and, go over there and do it and solitaire or do anything I wanted, but, certainly not what I was supposed to be doing. It's embarrassing to admit to cheating, but I mean, my grades were so bad that, I didn't want bad grades. I wanted to look better.
I actually just got back from a talk to a group of mortgage lenders, and I was telling them about rescue time, which I learned about from you. And I've been doing it for a couple weeks now. And I think I got like a 66 on Friday or something. And I was thinking, it's been a while since I've been in school, but I'm pretty sure that's a failing score. I mean, that's just, it's really bad. But now that I know I can cheat,
yes,
I might.
If you have it on all your devices, it's not quite so easy, if you get some of these other things too, but it's like it doesn't help you if you cheat. I mean, that's the reality.
Well, so one of the things that I really liked about just reading through the book was the different experiments you would do with yourself, and that you really were your guinea pig for this time management experiment. And so you did a week of distraction-free living, which sounded both liberating and also very challenging. So how was that? I mean, tell us a little bit about that. What did you do? How did it work out? Kind of put us in your shoes there.
Well, let me first of all say that the week of distraction-free living was not the first thing I did. It came after multiple other changes, and it came after doing rescue time, and it came after blocking, some of these other, blocking myself and preventing a lot of things that I would go wrong, that putting up that firewall. So at one point I decided I literally needed to try to pull it together and see if I could do it for an extended period of time. So I actually made some rules for myself in terms of, when I would go online, and I put some time blocks on my email. I turned off, again, like I said, all the notifications. I set myself up for success. And this is going back to getting the system in place that'll allow you to do what you have to do. And what I discovered was kind of funny. I tended to distract myself a lot. It's like I was so used to living in a world of distraction that actually focusing for any period of time was initially quite difficult. And there were times when my cell phone would magically appear in my hand, and I had no idea how it got there, because in my right mind, I wouldn't have picked it up and put it in my hand, but there it was. So then I had to go back and get rid of it. Again, you have to resist early on, because once you go down that rabbit hole, you are gone for a period of time. But what I found after a while, you had to get yourself into this non-distraction free zone, that it's really quite liberating, that you really can get a whole lot more done than you ever think possible. And you get better work done. I really actually found that the quality of my thinking was better. I was able to explore a whole lot more options and come up with better ways. I found, because I do a lot of writing, I found really good things that I wanted to write about. And I was better at my job. I literally was better at my job, at a higher level, performing at a higher level, and enjoying it more. Wow. I mean, isn't that nice to be like that? I was fighting the discipline, and I was fighting, the distractions all along, but there were some really solid benefits that were amazing. I mean, I felt like I had my brain back. And my time back, my brain and my time, that it wasn't fragmented everywhere, that it could be useful. And it was just more fun.
Yeah. How long did it take you to stop feeling some of those pulls of, I need to check this, or I need to check my email, or right? So we feel the pull of the distraction. How long did it take for that to start to subside?
Well, let me just say, because I'd committed to a week, it was useful to know that I wasn't doing it forever. Because I don't think it's like anything. You can't, it's like giving up alcohol or something. If you're an alcoholic and you say it's forever, I was doing it one day at a time. I mean, that's the reality. The temptations are always there, but once you get in the flow and you start to feel the betterness of working like that, I don't know if that's a word, betterness, but
it is now.
It is now. But once you start feeling it, it really feels good, and you start to feel the alternative and the joy of the alternative way of working. But again, you have to keep those firewalls up from most part, because the temptation is always there. Like I said from the beginning, we're wired for instant gratification. We get dopamine hits every time we go off task and check our email. And so we really have to keep the firewalls up. I mean, I still have the firewalls. I still protect myself, because I do not want to put myself into the den of iniquity that goes online, where I just disappear and do things I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, it's a black, ugly hole to get sucked into, which I know.
No, and it doesn't feel like it when you're going down it. It feels so good. And you're
wonderful.
Things. Yes, you're learning so many things about people and their companies and psychology, and then you do a little shopping and
and you've got high heel shoes, new ones. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Elyse.
I know.
So the way that your book was structured to me was part of what made it different from a lot of other time management books that I've read. And so you start off with, the theory of why time management is so challenging these days. And then you go through a bunch of solutions and talk about your experiments. And then you talk about systems that you can put into place with prospecting and selling to help maximize your time. And so I wanted to take just a little bit of our remaining time to have you share with our listeners some of those. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me was your template for prospecting. And so another one of the ways we can get sucked down the rabbit hole or feel like we have all of our time sucked away is by not being organized with our prospecting outreach. And, when we've got a prospect we want to go after and we're having to recreate the wheel every single time of what we're going to say in that first message and the second message, it can take up a ton of time. And frankly, I think that's how most salespeople probably do it. So I would love if you could share just a little bit about your prospecting techniques, some of the templates you talked about. You shared an 8 to 10 touch point template, which is actually written out in the book, which I thought was really valuable. But talk with us about how someone would put that together from scratch and why it would be valuable to use in their prospecting efforts to save time.
Sure. Like you just said, most salespeople treat prospecting as if it's a one-off activity, and they go, oh God, I got to get back to this person, or I need to follow up on that person. I haven't heard back, and everything is the one-off, which, by the way, every time you have to stop and think about something like this, you're wasting a significant amount of time. What did I say last time? I better go check, and let me go check on their LinkedIn profile. Let me do this. And you create a whole bunch of effort around each particular message. But if you stop and think, for example, my target market is VPs, senior VPs of sales, the head salesperson in the organization. And so do they have certain issues that are in common that I can help them address? And the answer is yes. And I think any one of us, if we say, here's our target market, we're going after these type of decision makers, they're dealing with these common issues. These are common issues. And the person we're calling may not have all of them, but they certainly have some of them. And so if we pick the ones that are of most importance to this person, or likely to be of most importance, we can create a series of emails, outreaches, touches on LinkedIn, a whole series of ways to be in contact with this person, focusing in on the critical issues that they're facing that we can address. Please note, I did not say focusing on our services, because nobody gives a rip about what we're selling. They could care less about our, state-of-the-art, unique technology or our wonderful methodology. They don't care about that. But they do care about how they can address the challenges that they're facing. And so if you sit down and I say to myself, because I identified my target market, one of their critical issues is pipeline. VPs of sales are constantly concerned with pipeline. They're concerned with sales productivity. They're concerned with close rates. They're concerned with the length of the sales cycle. I can help them address all those issues in various ways, but I can also put together and craft a series of messages where I can reach out to them. And the first message might focus on the fact that most VPs of sales and technology are very concerned with how to get more of the right kind of prospects in their pipeline. Here's something you might want to read that might be helpful or of interest. And I might not ask for a meeting at the first time. I might refer them to an article that's been posted on LinkedIn or my company's website. I might reach out via LinkedIn. But if I think about it, if this is what I choose to do as my first one, and I'm sending out an email, my next thing that I might want to do would be to follow up with a phone call, because logically you need to do both. People need to hear you in multiple mediums, and they need to know that you're offering value and have ideas, insights, information that kind of surrounds them. And so I call them on the phone, and I might leave a near identical message. And I might even tie it back to I just sent you an email. As I mentioned in my email, one of the things that's, pipeline is a big issue. I've been working with some other technology companies to help them increase their pipeline by 27%. If this is of interest, let's set up a time to talk. And then I might connect with them on LinkedIn, or I might see what they've been saying on LinkedIn, and I might be able to add some value there. And here's something that might be of interest, to share these things. So I'm building the relationship over here. But the reality is I still need my outreach where I'm focused on them and connecting with them as I'm building a relationship potentially through social media, and I need to plan the next step. And so I need to know, what are the resources that are at hand? What can I share that I have on my website, what my company has? What are some other things that they might be interested in that are not on my website? For example, there might be an interesting study on how companies are leveraging social media today to increase their pipeline. I could send them to that. It would be helpful, useful. All my messaging is focused on their issues or providing value in some way. But I can map it out, and I can create 8 to 10 touches that I can roll out over a period of 3 to 4 weeks and connect with this person. Ultimately, they will respond if it is, if you craft some good messaging. And the reason I want to say 8 to 10 touches is because most people we're dealing with today are crazy busy. They go through their email with their finger on the delete button, ready to delete you as soon as humanly possible. They see what the subject line is. They see what the first line is. If they don't like it, they delete you. If they're having a bad day, they delete you. If they, there's so many reasons why. So to just think, well, I'm just going to, do it here, do it there. No, put together the frickin' system and implement it, and then just roll it out over time without having to invest another 20 minutes of and getting some of that, idleness aversion. Oh, I got to think about them. No, I think I'll check email instead. So if we put together this system, we're free to implement it, and we can, be in touch with more people more frequently with the right messaging.
So selfishly, I want to know, after you do those 8 to 10 touches, if you don't hear anything or if you get a no back, what's your follow-up from there? Do you do like every 6 months, you just continue to send them something valuable? Do you send like a ball in your court type of email? What would you do in that situation?
I think that our role is to just keep providing helpful information and not ask for meetings, but just keep providing things, and then watch for trigger events and things that happen in their organization or in their greater world that might create a loosening of their current status quo. And watching for trigger events to me is one of the most important things, because situations change. Even new leaders come into the organization, and things change when that happens too.
I would like you to define trigger events, because that to me is, once you build this plan, that's the interruptions you are going to allow to occur when you open the window to look.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you schedule your time in blocks, and then you have time to check your email. What are you letting in during that time to check your email? And one that you indicated, which is to me core to social selling, is identifying key trigger events. But I'd like to hear your definition of what that is.
Yeah, a trigger event is something that happens either within an organization or external to an organization that changes their priorities. Something has happened that's changed their priorities, and it could be the election. It could be the dollar drops against the yen. It could be the fact that they're building a new factory. It could be, like I said, the promotion or the new leadership comes in. It could be a new strategic initiative. It could be third quarter earnings. And by the way, well, we've got first quarter earnings coming out soon for most companies. If first quarter earnings are down, there's a lot of people who are going to be looking for ways to save money or to drive revenue up. That is just across the board. If revenue is down, if profitability is down, they're going to be focused on that. If it's flat, same thing. And so anytime you look at somebody's earnings statements and see what they're doing, you have a new entree to get in, because now you can see, I see your earnings are flat this quarter. I suspect you're under a lot of pressure to find ways to reduce, increase, speed up, whatever it is, the issue that you're dealing with. Drive more revenue, get more prospects in the pipeline. You're probably under a lot of pressure to get this to happen. You might want to check out how we help this company. But it's an opening to get back in, because now people are under pressure to do things differently. The status quo is open for reinterpretation, revisiting. And that's actually the single best time to get into a company, when you can tie your messaging into some sort of trigger event. Fastest of all.
And two more little things that I think you brought up that need to not be stepped over, and that is downtime, quiet time, and that concept that we need to realize that boredom may be a sign that you haven't developed the ability to be with yourself. I don't want to underestimate the importance of working on certain things that really build up skills that will help you in getting creative ideas, because the more you can be with yourself, move through your own emotional noise, and have this intentional downtime, to me, that is where the deeper consciousness comes up with the most profound gestalt ideas.
Yeah. I really believe in that too. I mean, one of the things I talk about in the book is that walking is work, and I used to put my physical activity at the end of the day and try to squeeze it in. But when I found out that, and I started to realize that detaching from my work, detaching from it literally was the source of many of my good ideas. And the brain works, there's two kinds of thinking. There's a focused thinking, and then there's the greater type of thinking when your brain is more free and able to, connect the dots on specific challenges you're facing. And so, I mean, I really got to the point that personally, when I got stuck, I got up and went for a walk. When I needed a break and needed to refresh my brain because I've been focusing for so hard, I'd get up and go and out and do something, or just sit quietly. Just quietly, doing nothing. Computer shut, turned off. No phone off. I mean, just something quiet, because that's, like you said, it's where you really can connect with some of the better parts of yourself. And certainly the best ideas. And I think in selling today, knowing that the way we differentiate ourselves is by bringing people good ideas and by thinking about their issues and challenges and bringing them insights that can truly matter. I think we really need to not just be focused on call, do, but think, quiet. That's quiet.
Meditating is core in my own survival. To quote my best friend, when I meditate every day, it makes a profound difference in my life. That's why I stop. That's what he said, because human condition is to derail these things that often serve us. We're creatures of habit, not good habit.
That's exactly true. We're creatures of habit, but not good habit. We just do what we've done and what has evolved over time for us. And it's not like we even thought about why we're doing what we're doing. We're just doing.
Yeah, and we don't have time to go into it, but I want people to read the area when you talk about building an avatar as a way to make profound change, because I call that in coaching shifting at the level of identity, which I had to do because I had identified with a disability as who I was. And if I didn't create a new identity to live out of, I wouldn't have survived today. So I just don't want you to underestimate that. Maybe you and I could do a show just on that aspect. But you talked about it using the tool Avatar. So we'll let them dig into your book and your work to find it. Also found a great video that you recently did. We'll include in the show notes. And now we want to find out, how can they learn more about you and experience more of your wisdom and your incredible authentic courage of sharing yourself, that to me really inspires others, just as it did Elyse, to go to the next level?
Well, you can find me online at jillkonrath.com, and that's Konrath with a K. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, certainly. I invite people to connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn, and you get updates on what I'm doing at that point too. But please do go to my website. What most people don't know is I have tons of free resources on my website. I mean, like literally tons, whether it's blog posts, videos. I've got ebooks on how to do just about everything, and I give everything away freely. It's part of my mission to give all that stuff away for free.
And it's really high quality information. And if they misspell your name on LinkedIn, they'll still find you. So they can look up and see why that's true on their profile page. Well, Elyse, anything you want to close? And then I'll go over our closing comments. This has been a powerful show. I think people will probably want to hear it more than once. Elyse?
Yeah, this was phenomenal, Jill. I mean, it's so cool to get to read the book and then connect with you in person, just to see it all kind of come to life. And so I just want to ask for anyone who does want to get the book, More Sales, Less Time, I'm assuming, can they get it anywhere? Amazon, off of your website?
Everywhere.
Yep. Everywhere. Beautiful. All right, guys, I'm telling you, go get it. And I mean, I know we're not doing this as a book promo per se, but it helped me so much. I took like 15 pages of notes. So now it's going to take a lot of time to actually go back and implement all these time-saving strategies, but I know it's worth it. So really, really just phenomenal, Jill. And thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Excellent. Absolutely. And we just want to mention again, this is sponsored by our social selling training courses and online. We'll have new information coming out with the changes to LinkedIn. So if you're lost and confused, watch out for them. We also want to mention to check out the Amazon Alexa skill that Greg is doing a fantastic job on. It will be in the show notes as well. You can check it out. And if you want to go to our website, linkintoSales.com/ALEXA, that's www.linkintoSales.com/ALEXA, or search for the skill social selling tips of the day by Hire. Highly recommend it. Excellent pieces. We also are very generously giving away good information. And thanks again for being on the Social Selling Podcast with Linking to Sales. This is Martin Brossman
And Elyse Archer.
and this completes the show. Look forward to the comments.